Hari Om, Vanakkam, Swagatam. Chinmaya Devotees Society welcomes each and every one of you to the Bhagavad Gita talks today on chapter 12, the Bhakti Yoga. We are highly honored to have with us Swamini Supriyananda ji, who will be explaining these verses to us. Swamini ji, welcome again today and over to you.
Om. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwara Guru Deva Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapiyat Sarvam Trailokyam Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Shri Chinmaya Satgurave Namaha. Om Shri Chinmaya Satgurave Namaha. Om Shri Chinmaya Satgurave Namaha. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramartanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. In the Gita, Krishna has advised Arjuna to worship the Supreme Lord, to fix his mind on the Lord. And so Arjuna starts chapter 12 with this question to gain clarity on how to worship the Lord. And we usually see worship as rituals that are being done, puja, and going to the temple, doing pradakshina, singing bhajans, kirtan, decorating the altar. We also see people meditating. And the picture of a rishi in our scriptures tends to be one of meditating, sitting sometimes for days together, months together in samadhi. And so Arjuna's question is, which one is yoga uttama, the highest yoga? And so this is exactly what Krishna is explaining, that devotion is love for the Lord, which unites us to the Lord. That love that makes the mind so completely absorbed in the Lord that we are united. And it can be the gopis thinking of the form of Sri Krishna and pining for Sri Krishna. When Krishna leaves Vrindavan and goes to Mathura to not ever again return to Vrindavan, the gopis would be so filled with the remembrance of Krishna that everything reminded them of him. They would look up into the sky, and if they saw a cloud and the cloud, had a blue hay to it, they would say, well, that's the color of Krishna, and see, he's come to haunt me because he's come as the cloud. And bees would be buzzing, doing their thing, going and collecting honey. And the gopis would tell the bees, yes, I know Krishna left. Don't keep reminding me of Krishna. And so even in the buzzing of the bees, they would remember Krishna in the clouds, in the grass, and every spot in Vrindavan, and they wouldn't, Krishna's footprints were very distinct. And so nobody ever walked on top of them because they wanted that footprint to remain in the sand all over Vrindavan. And so every time they would see it, they would think, oh, he stepped here, he was here, he sat on this rock, he sat under this tree, this was the cow he was petting when that incident happened. And so immersed in the thought of the form of the Lord of Krishna that they completely united with him in thought and in spirit and in love and in their very being. Krishna pervades everything that they were feeling and doing because they were just constantly thinking of him. And then we have great saints like Ramana Maharishi, who we know had meditated in the pine groves or in the caves in Arunachala mountain and no thought of anything, just absorbed in pure consciousness. And whether it is the gopi thinking so intensely of Krishna or Ramana Maharishi thinking so intensely about formless truth, they had absorption, which is what devotion is. And that is what yoga is. Because each of these words, yoga means to unite. And so when we say bhakti yoga, it's to unite us to the Lord. And so we saw that Krishna doesn't really say one is better than the other, because really it's for each one of us to see which suits our temperament and which one we are most comfortable doing that will help us to feel more absorbed. But he does give qualifications that when we're worshipping the form, we have to fix the mind on the form. When we're worshipping the formless, we control the senses. And control the senses is not mentioned when there's a form, because when there's a form, we do puja and we offer agarbatti and we can smell it. We offer so many beautiful, colorful flowers and we can see it. We see the murti and we taste the prasad. And so the senses are involved in our connecting to the Lord. And then the criteria given is to have a mind that is steady if we are meditating on the formless, and if we are meditating on the form, to be consistent and regular. But we can see that all aspects apply to our spiritual path overall. And finally, when there is form, to have that faith. And when there is formless, to have that seva bhav to the wider community. And so having understood these aspects of devotion, he then, now that he has been able to make us understand that it's not so airtight fixed compartments, that this is bhakti, this is jnana, and it's not airtight that, saguna and nirguna with form and without form, and it's completely different. Because, even in the Bhagavatam, there's a point where Shri Krishna tells Yashoda Maya, because she sees the Vishwarupa darshan in his mouth and she gets all confused and she's so disorientated, and then she starts treating Krishna with all this reverence, and he doesn't want that. So he smiles and she forgets everything. And then at moments again, she thinks, but wait, are you my son? Or are you this amazing Lord that I should be bowing down to? And before leaving, Krishna tells Yashoda Maya, love me as your son, but in your heart of hearts, know me to be the Lord of the universe. And so we can understand formless entity, highest truth, imperishable, but our connection is to the form. And vice versa. We can be meditating on unmanifest and kutastha and achalam. but we can relate to a form. When we see Krishna, we know it's just an idol representing an ideal. We know that it's a window through which we can peep to see all of divinity. And so here, now that this understanding is established, that it's just different ways of reaching the same goal, then he does clarify in verse number 5 that some people find one way a little easier. Verse number 5 says, Kutas klesho.
क्लेशोऽधिकतरस्तेषाम्
Kleshodikatarastesham
अव्यक्तासक्तचेतसाम्
avyaktasaktachetasam
अव्यक्ता हि गतिर्दुःखम्
avyakta hi gatir dukkam
देहवद्भिरवाप्यते
dehavat piravapyate. Klesha. Klesha is difficulty, challenge, obstacle. Dikatarastesham. There is a slight challenge in avyakta chetasam, in worshipping the formless. And this is also qualified. A lot of people take this first part of the statement and say, see, nirguna upasana is very difficult. And so some people say, who wants to do difficult? Let me do what's easy. And other people are like, well, difficult must be for better. And so I want to do the difficult one. This is all unnecessary. We have to understand the essence of what Sri Krishna is saying. And it's avyakta hi gatir dukkam. When we sorry, I'll do the next bit first. Deha ved apir avapyate. Deha, body. When we have a body, can be one translation, but of course all of us have a body. So more specifically, when we are identified with our body, then avyakta asakta chetasam is klesha. It's difficult to meditate on the nirguna aspect of the Lord. So, when we have a body, and we have different levels of body identification, sometimes level of body identification is based on vanity, and we spend so much time grooming ourselves, or fashion, and Instagram, and selfies, and endless. And not, there's Instagram, there's TikTok, there's so many mediums on which you can be on. It's not even just one. And, your LinkedIn profile, and then there's Facebook. And then if you have a YouTube channel, then so, in terms of your grooming and your presentation. Or sometimes it can be somebody is very fashion conscious. That can be just their love. And so the way it looks in terms of all the accessories, the shoes, the belts, the earrings, the gel, the hair, the clothes, and even if I'm into sports, that's also a lot of body identification. Because, now this muscle needs to be stretched, and this muscle needs to be tightened, and this muscle needs to be made a bit bigger, and this one a bit flatter, and this one. And so it can be a lot of preoccupation in terms of sports. But, so when I've seen these personal trainers, and the kids get really, kids meaning the youth, not small kids, they get really into their sports, then they have to stretch each. Now we're going to stretch this muscle, and then the next one, and the next one. And it can take like a whole 2 hours before you finish stretching the whole body, but so much attention on the body. Not necessarily a horrible thing, or you are a bad person, or you're unspiritual. It just means there's a lot of time thinking about the body. And then the other time we're thinking a lot about the body is when illness comes. If you have the slightest pain in even, one finger, or a tooth, or some muscle is tight, take so much attention. That physical discomfort. Or if there isn't sometimes Guruji will joke that as people get older, then they'll give you the daily bulletin of how they're feeling and, the movement of their digestion or lack of movement. And it's like, who needs to know? But they're so preoccupied with all these, and it's not even vanity, it's just comfort. And so we have the strong sense of body identification. So to go from me thinking about my form suddenly to formless, it's too big a jump. So me thinking about my form, we replace it with thinking about Bhagavan's form. And so then it's still a form and it's still easy. And even if I'm not highly, versed in the scriptures, what will I think about? Well, I'll think about how beautiful he is, how compassionate he is, maybe some of the leelas, or I'll chant the different names in a bhajan of a tune that I relate to. Whereas when we think of nirguna, there has to be no thought. And we have to see beyond the thought. But we're so used to thinking our thought and not just watching the thought come and go. We've never done that. We've never just seen the thought and then let it go and not act on it. Usually we have a thought and immediately let's text someone, I thought this. No, post it on Instagram. We constantly acting on our thoughts, right? In vague thought of I'm hungry, open fridge. We constantly doing something based on the things we think. We're not used to just see the thought, let the thought go. Yeah. But think of Krishna, chant his name. Okay, I can do. Even that I may not be able to do very well, but I can attempt to. At least I know what to do. And when people say, what should I do when I'm meditating? Nothing. Then how do I meditate? Do nothing. So what should I do? And so since we need something to do, well, think of Krishna and then bow down to him and then do his japa and then feel his presence and know his all pervading nature. Oh, okay. And so now we have something we can do, even though it's more subtle and more divine. And even though we may not be able to master it overnight, at least we have the sense of something that we can do. And so here, Shankaracharya in his commentary of chapter 12 gives this beautiful example, which almost every speaker talking on chapter 12 from the Advaitic tradition will narrate. It's the differences between when a cat has kittens, then those kittens, I think they're born blind and they very, very, very helpless, very cute, don't know what to do, where to go. And so the mother will hold the kitten by the back of their neck and carry them to wherever they need to go and nudge them to even drink the milk. Now push them into the right spot and all they have to do is drink. They do absolutely nothing. They are literally carried. And monkey, the baby monkey in the forest, the monkey has to jump from tree to tree to get to their food. And so can't be holding the baby and jump from tree to tree. So the baby monkey is brought up to be able to hold on really tight. And so either they hugging the mom, like we do when they carry those baby beyonds, or they on the back and they hold on really tight. And the mom jumps from tree to tree. So the baby monkey has to have strong muscles from day one because they need to be able to hold on so tight. And because nature is made in such an ingenious way, they do. They have incredibly strong muscles and they never fall. They're always able to hold on very tight. And of course, motherly intuition, if they are losing a bit, she'll stop and she'll allow them to regrip and then she moves on. The kitten is not born with that muscle strength. It takes a while for their strength to come. And so when they're really young, everything's done for them. But they get strong. They don't stay so helpless. In fact, they grow quite quickly, and then they're running around themselves, making a mess. And before long, they're able to carry their own kitten. So here, when something is harder, we need our mind to have already developed that muscle. What's the muscle we need here? The ability to concentrate, number one. The ability to think in a subtle way. What does subtle way mean? Things that don't have a form, things that don't have a shape, things that don't have distinct things to do. So abstract thinking. And that's an art. So and this is why in Buddhism they have all these qualms. Now think of, if a tree falls in the forest, does it make a sound if no one was there to hear it? Why do I need to think about that? How does that help anyone with anything in life? Well, it helps me to think in a way that's subtle. Think of silence. Helps me to think of something that's subtle. Think of space. And the minute I say space, 80% of you would have thought planets, stars, meteors, comets, and not just open space with no object. Because the way we recognize space is with some objects. So that muscle may not be strong yet to be able to think subtly. And for a fair few of us, the muscle for concentration is also not so strong. Little bit, work in progress. I can concentrate when I really have to. When the deadline is tomorrow, I can get it done. But if the deadline's in another month, concentration power not so good. So some of us have, some of us don't have it. And it's not that we're better or the worse, just some people have put in effort to already develop it, and some have to still put in effort to already develop it. But to think of the formless, I have to be able to watch the thought. And now this is another interesting ability that the mind needs to have developed to meditate on the formless. So first was concentration skill. 2 was the ability to think subtly. And the 3rd is not to judge. Really? I mean, we're judging bhakti only. Comparing it to karma, we're judging sarguna to nirguna. We're judging the speaker. How she looks, her accent, how far is she going, how far is she going, is she going to finish the chapter? We're judging constantly, everything, or maybe only she's judging that. But to be able to do nirguna upasana, I have to be able to let go of judgments, because when the thoughts appear in my mind, and if I judge them, I engage in that thought. And it will lead to more thoughts. And the thoughts will build up. And to drop judgment and to let just the thought pass is a skill that we have. So is my equipment ready to do that? Like, I used to be able to thread a needle so quickly. Now I need my glasses to thread the needles. And so often, instead of going to get my glasses, come back, thread the needle, I'll just ask one of the younger kids, can you thread this? Equipment doesn't work in that way. So we do what the equipment can do. Or someone whose hand is very shaky, difficult for them to thread a needle. Why? Equipment is not conducive. They might be the most beautiful person, so sincere, but the equipment can't do that particular task. So my equipment, mind and intellect, can it do this task? Can it think about formless truth with single-pointed concentration and be able to love and be absorbed in that? Very often, no. very often when we leave the mind free and say, no, don't think about anything, it'll think about everything. In fact, it wouldn't have thought all those things. But because I'm saying, now you stay focused on formless, no, be subtle, the more it will think, the more gross it becomes, the more perverse it becomes, the more angry it becomes, the more erratic it becomes. Because it's like, in Hong Kong, we have this beautiful space here in the ashram, and very often kids will come in either for the classes or just to receive blessings or the puja. And the first thing they do is they start running around like crazy. And the mother will look at me and say, I don't know what's gotten into my kid. And I said, it's fine. They don't see so much space in Hong Kong that often. So now that they're seeing space, they just, so happy that they can run around. Let them run. This is what our mind does. Oh, no job? I don't have to do any work. I don't have to think about anything. All right. And it goes stir crazy. And so here in this verse, Krishna is saying, harder to meditate on the formless. Does that mean it's easy to meditate on the form? Just easier. Not easy. When will it become easy? When I love. Because when I love something, I can't stop thinking about it. One of the sweetest stories that I've heard from Gurudev in the videos, and Swami Supriyananda also very often says it. Narad Muniji is walking past Vrindavan, and she sees a gopi sitting with her legs crossed and doing this. And he thinks, what is she doing? Firstly, you hardly ever see gopis sitting with their legs crossed, eyes closed. It's just not a sight you see. Because, they sing Krishna in the sand, in the clouds, in the bees. You don't see them meditating. And kids really do this when they're meditating. They're not aware that we can see them. Their eyes are closed and they think they can't be seen. And so obviously she's fighting with herself. Like she's really trying very hard to do something with her eyes closed. So Naraji taps her on the shoulder and says, what are you doing? She said, I'm meditating. And now he's really intrigued. What are you meditating on? Well, I'm trying to get Krishna out of my mind. The whole world is trying to get Krishna in their mind. And this gopi is meditating. She's shaking her head so determined. Why can't she get Krishna out of her mind? And why can't we get Krishna in our mind? We will think about what we love. We will also think about what we dislike. But when we love and somebody starts talking on that topic, we can go on and on and on. It's hard to take the mind off things that we love. So, so a quick check for each one of us. Should we be doing Nirguna or Saguna? Well, how identified are we with body? No, we're very elevated spiritual souls. Acha, quick check. When you want to celebrate, what do you do? Eat or meditate? You never think of meditating to celebrate? Oh, maybe need to do Saguna Upasana first. Okay, So now there's this beautiful, beautiful two verses that where Krishna is saying, so we had the cat and the monkey had to hold on and the cat got carried. Why can't I get carried? You know, why can't I just be that little cat and then Krishna come and pick me up and put me where I need to be on his lap? And then I want to be that little cat. So Krishna says, you can be. And this is how.
ये तु सर्वाणि कर्माणि
Ye tu sarvani karmani
मयि सन्न्यस्य मत्पराः
Mai sanyasya matparaha
अनन्येनैव योगेन
ananyeneva yogena
मां ध्यायन्त उपासते
mam dhyayanta upasate
तेषामहं समुद्धर्ता
teshamaham samuddarta
मृत्युसंसारसागरात्
mrityu samsara sagarat
भवामि न चिरात् पार्थ
bhavami nachirat partha
मय्यावेशितचेतसाम्
maya veshita chetasam Yetu sarvani karmani. Ye referring to the previous verse where he's talking about meditating on the form. When we're meditating on the form, what should we do? Sarva karmani. All our actions dedicated to the Lord. Now, this particular step we'll be seeing a lot more in just 2-3 verses. Mai sanyasya matparaha. To do the actions, renouncing them to me or for me or seeing me as matparaha, as supreme. And then this is the most important bit. Ananyeva yogena. And this is just this one phrase is so incredibly beautiful. If we, it's one of the phrases that stand out in all of the 700 verses of the Gita. Ananyeneva yogena. Ananya is to have no otherness. How do we attain yoga, union? When we take away otherness, when we take away dissipation of the mind in different avenues. Mam dhyayanti upasate, and focus and meditate only on this supreme truth, the Lord of my heart, the Lord of the universe. Then for these people, which people? These people who love the Lord and only the Lord and nothing else. Tesham aham samuddarta. Then literally they are carried across the ocean. Which ocean? Mrityu samsara sagarat. Ocean of death. Birth, death, happiness, sorrow, 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 heartache, rejection, inferiority, fear, anger, guilt, jealousy. All of this is the ocean. Bhavami me nachirat partha. I love this. Nachirat. Very quickly, because we're very impatient people. We want to get things done very quickly. So Krishna is very clear. Quickly. I'll do it quickly. I won't waste time. Maya veshita chetasam. I will carry you. Krishna is saying. Now, when I first started studying the Gita, I used to go for classes in Melbourne by this lovely lady who was a devotee of Puja Gurudev. And one of the things she used to say so often, it's brainwashed. She used to say it every third, fourth class. If we take one step to God, He takes 10 to us. But actually, no. We have to take one step and he'll do all the rest. So he's just waiting for us to take that one step. And sometimes so compassionate, we don't even finish the step. We just look at him and he'll come and lift us. And so what's that one step we have to take? Ananyeneva yogena. To remove otherness from our mind. Now this can be incredibly profound and deep, but I'm going to stick to the devotional aspect here. The Advaitic aspect of otherness is to take away the sense of my separateness of my ego entity, which for now we're going to put on hold. Something like this. Sri Krishna is looking at all of us and he's saying, here, I'm holding moksha. Come and take it. And we look down at our hands and we think, oh, but I'm holding so many things. Yeah. Maybe I'm holding sweet mangoes, or maybe I'm holding my child's hand, I'm holding my laptop, and of course I'm holding my mobile phone. And how to take moksha from you? My hands are full. And so Krishna says, well, put down all of that and come, take. You can have moksha. And we think, really? But do I want to put all these things down? You'll give me moksha whenever I want, right? Let me just finish this text message. Let me just finish playing with my kid. Let me just finish getting this promotion. Let me just finish and whatever, restyling my hair. Let me finish this degree. Let me finish. It can be the pettiest things. It can be what we think the biggest things, but actually compared to moksha, does it make a difference? Does it matter that I want to finish my PhD or I want to get a makeover? Compared to moksha. So many of us pursue spirituality. Not that we don't. We genuinely want to be a nice person. We genuinely want to be able to feel our divinity and to spread that light in the world. But we're holding on to so many other desires. So many other desires, and they vary in intensity, they vary in importance, they vary in so many things, but we really holding on. And so Krishna is saying, let all of it go. And then I will lift you. But for as long as you're holding on to all of it, I will let you play in this world. Play as much as you want to play. Like a parent seeing the kid entertained. The parent will let the kid be entertained. And so when we really, with all our heart, yearn for Krishna, he comes. I mean, any form of the Lord, but since it's the Bhagavad Gita, I'm saying Krishna can be Shiva, Hanuman, Ganesh. And the Lord comes. And we see these incredible stories like Suradas. Suradas was this blind child who followed these saints into the forest because he wanted to go to Vrindavan to see where Krishna lived. And he was blind, he can't see, but he still wanted to go to Vrindavan, to where Krishna lives. And the saints didn't want to have to, I don't know if they were saints, but they didn't want to have to look after this kid. And so they left in the middle of the night without waking him. And he woke up and he was all alone and he had no idea where he was. And so he started walking, still determined to go to Vrindavan, which is amazing. And of course, because he can't see and if he's in a forest, he falls literally into a ditch. And a little boy comes to lift him out of the ditch and to guide him to Vrindavan. And he chats with this little boy and they sing and they having a great time in the forest. And the boy is describing everything to him. This bird looks like this and the grass looks like this. And he's filled with this incredible sense of joy. And then he asks, who are you? And when the little boy says, Gopala, Suridas realizes, oh my gosh. And he disappears. Who? Gopala. Because now Suridas's mind is thinking he wants more rather than just loving the Lord and pining for the Lord. When there's just, that's all I want. That's all I want. He comes. Again and again and again and again, he comes. You know, there's another incident in the Bhagavatam where towards the tail end of Krishna's living in Vrindavan, there's this Ras Leela, where he goes out into the forest and he's playing his flute. And the flute would stir the hearts of the gopis, everyone, the cows, the plants, everyone. But the gopis, they felt this pull that they would have to go sit around him, to listen to him playing this flute, because it felt like the music of the flute felt like their very breath. And if they couldn't go to it, they felt like they couldn't breathe. And so on that night, when he goes out and he starts playing the flute to literally call the gopis to him, so many of them just leave. They leave their house, not knowing how they dress, whether they've got makeup, not makeup. They just leave. And some were leaving to go to him, and they were stopped. You know, whether it be their husbands, the mother-in-laws, or whoever was there in the house, they locked the door and said, where are you going at night? Don't be foolish. Of course you can't go. And they felt such despair that they couldn't be with Krishna, that they thought there's no point in this body if this body can't go to Krishna. And they actually used yogic siddhi to leave their bodies. It's not suicide or death because it's yogic siddhis and it's going to Krishna, but that's how much they yearned for Krishna. If you stop this body, I will leave my body, but I will go to him. Ananyeneva. Nothing else is important. Nothing else matters. Only that I love him and that I serve him and that I think of him and that I am his. Even if he's not mine, let me be his completely, completely, completely. Every iota of my being, let it be his. He wants, he doesn't want, doesn't matter. I am his. He takes, he doesn't take, doesn't matter. I'm his. This is Ananyene Vayogena. And this strength of our pining, again, here it's being talked about in terms of Saguna Upasana, but it can be there even in Nirguna Upasana. And when Ramana Maharishi left his house, he had this strong urge to go to Arunachalam, and Shiva was the Lord of his heart and in that form of the Arunachala mountain. And even though he never really talks about Shiva in the form, when he reached the mountain, he says this much, and it's the last thing he says for years together. Father, I have come. That's it. That's it. And then he went into meditation for like 3-4 years. He didn't say another word after that. That's it. There was no more to say. Father, I have come. He didn't meditate on the form of Shiva. We know that he meditated on consciousness, but that Ananyeneva, there was no need. You know, he sold some jewelry, Ramana Maharishi. He sold some jewelry to be able to travel to get to Arunachala. And the person told him the jewelry is worth, I can't remember how much, let's say $1,000. And he said, no, I only need $50 for the train ticket. And he said, but What about the rest? The jewelry is worth that much. It's not worth anything. I just need to get to Arunachala. I'm not saying we should live foolishly in the world, but this is the goal, that when we work in the world, because it's saying here, sarva karmani, all our actions, while we are doing all our actions, let this be the goal. Let this be what I work towards. Let this be what I hold in my heart. The thought of the Lord and the wanting to be with the Lord. Whichever action it is I'm doing, whichever person it is I am with, let this be what I hold in my heart. Because he's promised, if I want him and him alone, he will carry me. Puja Gurudev Swami Chinmaya gives the example of how sometimes in India they have a bath using a bucket, and in the bucket some little bug will fall in. And then compassionate people will like hold that water and take that bug and carry it to safety, and how gently we do it. So how will the Lord carry me? Well, actually it's up to him. What does it matter? But he does it with so much love, and he might do it, and Guruji says he might do it by drishti, by looking at us, or he might tell a guru, go teach him something, or he might himself come like he did with Tulsidas and Tukaram and so many of the great saints. And so when we hear that, we want, right? When we hear all these things, we want. And that's the beautiful thing about satsang. The more we hear it, the more we're inspired to live that life, and it rekindles that goal within us to work towards that higher. And so what is it that we should do? Then he gives us the highest upasana, because remember, all of this starts with what is the upasana that we should be doing, and how should we be doing it? What is devotion, and how should we be doing it? And so this is, and this next few verses are beautiful, because he says, do this. Oh, okay, you can't? Then okay, do this. Okay, if you really can't, do this. And so he gives, and from these four, we all will have at least one thing we can do. So the highest that he gives us to do is with the spirit of ananyeneva yogena. Verse number 8.
Mayyeva mana adhatsva.
Mayyeva mana adatsva.
Mayi buddhim niveshaya.
Mayi buddhim niveshaya.
Nivasishyasi mayyeva.
Nivashishyasi mayyeva.
Atha urdhvam na samshayaha.
Ata urvam na samshayaha.
Next one, Swamiji.
Not yet. Mayyeva mana adatsva. Fix your mind on me. Mayi buddhim niveshaya. Fix your buddhi also on me. And so, we do speak about mind and intellect as two entities, but we know that they're one thinking faculty. It's just all thinking and thoughts, and then those thoughts that are more impulsive and emotional, mana. And so fix your mind on me means desire me, yearn for me, want me, love me. Because mind is sentiments. And mind is full of desires, right? All our desires is our mind looking for entertainment, looking for happiness, looking for attention. So that mind which is constantly wanting, Bhagavan is saying, want me. And then, Mayi buddhim niveshaya. Then fix your intellect on me. Then it's not enough to want something. It's not enough to even love something. There has to come understanding. Even if you think about a husband-wife relationship or a parent-child relationship, the parent can tell the kid, I love you so much. Why don't you understand? And the kid will reply, but you the one who doesn't understand. You don't understand me. If you love me, why don't you take the time to see what I'm saying, what I want? And so understanding has to come. Even in that, even though there's so much love, if I don't take the time to understand that, it stifles the love, or it hinders the love. In fact, love will want to know, right? And Gurudev would give the example that when a girl likes a boy or a boy likes a girl, like infatuation, you find out what's their favorite singer, where do they like to eat, what do they like to do, what do they like, because then they can find ways in which to engage with that person. And so it's not enough to just want and love. We need to understand. And this is why we so blessed again to have great masters like Gurudev, because even in that story of the gopis pining for Sri Krishna on the night of the Ras Leela, and we can read that story, and that story can be so incredibly confusing. Because why are the gopis running and then dancing in the full moon night with Krishna, and what's this all about? And when Gurudev explains that Krishna is standing in the middle and each of the gopis are dancing around Krishna, and when you stand outside watching, each gopi turns and you see Krishna in between each gopi. And so it appears like there's so many Krishnas dancing with so many gopis, but actually there's just that one Krishna standing in the center, and each gopi is twirling, dancing. And then he goes on to explain that Krishna is the very consciousness, the substratum that allows us to be able to experience each thought. And the gopis are the thoughts that come on that substratum of Krishna. And so there's consciousness, and the thought rises as though dances for a while and fades away. And so the Ras Leela is nothing but the dancing of our own thoughts with consciousness in our own minds. And there's only one consciousness, and it's always there, and it's unbroken, and it's eternal, and it's self-illuminous. And therefore, each gopi can be seen, and the dance can be seen. And then when you hear the story, and you know that it's in my mind, if I can focus on Krishna, let any thought come, let any thought go, let it dance in whichever way it wants to dance. I just need to focus on Krishna. I'm in meditation. I am absorbed in Krishna. But when I don't understand this symbolism and I close my mind and a thought comes, I'm absorbed in the thought. Whatever the silly random thought is. There can be some forward on the WhatsApp, which was a bad joke, and I'm sitting there thinking it was not even funny why these people forward me these things. And I get so completely absorbed in that thought, and that person, and that action. Whereas if I remember this thought rises in Krishna, dances with Krishna, fades away, and Krishna alone remains. My intellect completely understands the happenings of my mind, and so I'm not trapped into the distractions that come. I'm freed from the attachments that can be so clinging. I'm equipoised during the emotions that can be so turbulent. And so the intellect needs to be involved. It needs to understand. And therefore here it's so clear Mai mana adatsva, the mind absorbed in me. Mai buddhim niveshaya, intellect also absorbed in me. Niveshashyati mayeva. In this way, if I live, there is no doubt. So beautifully, Krishna, so clear, so confident, so reassuring. I will carry you. There's no doubt. Live this kind of life. There is no doubt. You will merge with me. Now, and please note, it doesn't matter which one I'm doing. If I'm doing Saguna Upasana, he's carrying me across this ocean. Then he's with me, right? I'm united, I'm absorbed, I'm yoga, united with him. And in Nirguna Upasana, when I'm thinking that each thought is coming and going, but Krishna alone is, and Krishna is that very consciousness, which is the substratum of all thoughts, I myself merge with Krishna in my thinking by distancing myself from the content of the thoughts and being absorbed in the very consciousness which I am. And so in both ways, it's yoga, it's yunja, it is being united with divinity. But this is hard to do, even though it is the ideal. And in fact, in Kaivalya Upanishad, when Gurudev is talking about mind and intellect, he likens it to two wings of a bird. The intellect is one wing and the mind is another, and you need both wings for the bird to fly. And we need both wings, mind and intellect, to fly in the heights of meditation. Sometimes we haven't quite developed both muscles so beautifully, and we don't have that ability to be so absorbed in the Lord. Why? We still have so many desires, so many attachments. And these desires and attachments, they make us stress, so stressed. And if we're stressed, how to think of God? We're only thinking about the thing that's stressing us. So then now what do I do? Hopeless case? No. There's no hopeless cases. Krishna gives us, well, if you're struggling to be completely absorbed in the Lord, then what you have to do is Ata chittam samadhatam
Atha chittam samadhatum
Shaknosi mai stiram
na shaknoshi mayi sthiram
Abhyasa yogena tata
abhyasa yogena tataha
Mam ichchaptum dhananjaya.
mamichhaptum dhananjaya.
Once again, this is one of the most important verses in all the 18 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita. What should you and I do? Abhyasa yogena. Earlier also it was ananyeneva yogena, yoga. Yoga with no otherness. Very hard. Don't worry. Abhyasa yogena will help you to get to ananyeneva yogena. Abhyas means practice. Every time the mind wanders away, bring it back. This is not only in the seat of meditation, this is in life. Right? We attending satsang regularly and then the mind wanders away. Sometimes to some random Netflix series. Sometimes mind wanders away. Some very interesting person comes into our life. So much fun to get to know them. Sometimes mind wanders away. Some jealousy creeps in. Some desire creeps in. We have so many vasanas from so many lifetimes. We don't know when that vasana manifests and takes us away on some joyride. Bring it back. Bring the mind back to satsang. Bring the mind back to upasana. And then, of course, while sitting in doing our upasana, the mind wanders away. And this we've heard. Blessed we are in Chinmaya Mission. We're exposed to so much satsang we've heard. Bring the mind back again and again. But in our everyday lives, there's things we can do. What are the things, what is a trigger? When I worked as a psychologist, this is one of the ways we would treat most mental agitations, right? People who had fears, people who have stress, people who have relationship issues. We find out what's the trigger that makes you spin off into anger? What's the trigger that makes you spiral down into fear? What's the trigger that makes you go into so much insecurity and low self-esteem? What's your trigger? So what's our trigger that we leave the Lord's feet and we go off exploring into the world? And it's very simple. The trigger is, I like. We think these words are so simple, so unassuming. We think these words are our friend. We think these words are going to entertain us and give us happiness. Which words? I like. But what does I like do? Creates desire. Desire creates anger, or greed, or jealousy. And then there's another one, I don't like. Even now, sitting in this Zoom call, if you suddenly see the face of somebody you don't like on the screen, also listening to the satsang, why are they here? Why are they pretending to be so spiritual? I hope Swamini ji is not looking at them and looking only at me. I don't like is more dangerous than I like, because we think more steadfastly about that person. And we become jada when we don't like, because we push, which leads to himsa. So, never mind sitting in the seat of meditation doing japa. Abhyasa yogena is, through the day, every time I think, I don't like this, or I think I don't like a person, immediately start chanting your mantra. Why? Because I don't like will lead to an avalanche of thoughts about how horrible that person is, which is not needed. The minute the trigger I don't like comes, japa. The minute the trigger I like comes, be mindful what it is. If it's a highly sense pleasurable thing that's really not going to benefit you in any way, and you're going to spend too much time brooding about it, japa. If it's something that can be used in a conducive way in your life, or is not terribly harmful, you can find a way that you are still adhering to dharma and not suppress any crazy vasanas. No, I'm not saying indulge. I'm saying assess. This is why intellect is also needed. And then the minute we've assessed what needs to be done, no more thoughts needed, japa. With dislike, don't bother assessing, japa. Shouldn't I understand why I don't like it? No need, japa. Shouldn't I try and like it? No, japa. Japa will do what we need it to do. It will purify our mind. Japa will sweep away all the dirt. Japa will shine dull surfaces. Japa will hold back what is unwanted. Abhyasa yogena doesn't mean every day sit back straight, legs crossed 3 hours non-stop. Abhyasa yogena means all through the day, be aware Our mind is constantly tricking us. We need intellect to be bowing down to the higher, keeping the Lord as our goal, and constantly guiding the mind. And when mind is about to throw a tantrum, start japa. Don't allow any of these tantrums to come along. And so initially it's hard. Like all these movies that we see, when we, any of these dance movies, ice skating movies, so many of them. And in the beginning, they're such a klutz. They're stepping on their own foot, they're stepping on the other person's foot, they are falling down, they're out of sync, and of course, purpose of movie, but that's the truth. When we start, we're so clumsy, right? It's so jerky. Our own thinking, I'm talking about our thinking. Our thinking is clumsy, our thinking is jerky. And then with practice, because at the end of the movie, that person is gliding, spinning. They look like angels. When we start japa, in the beginning it's effort. In the beginning it's clumsy. In the beginning it's labored, forced. Then it becomes security. It becomes a way to anchor our mind. And then it becomes sweetness and joy and love. Swami Akhandananda Maharaj says that when you do japa right, you will taste sweetness on your tongue as you say the mantra. Maybe it's not physical sweetness, it's the sweetness of our heart, being filled with love, and the sweetness of our mind, being so absorbed in that love. Abhyasa yogena is to just keep at it, never give up until he has to lift me. Give him no choice. We'll pause here for today.
Thank you, Swamini ji. Today's session is just so full of, it filled our heart with so much of love, so much of sweetness. Just to listen to these lines, that whether he accepts, he doesn't accept, he takes me, he doesn't take me, I am Krishna's. And with that kind of love, that sweetness, that devotion to do every action, to devote to him. I mean, this is such a beautiful, beautiful way. I hope that we can do this abhyas and reach that, that kind of status mentally where everything we do is just unto him. There are two lines that comes to my mind that goes, Kaam karte chalo, naam japte chalo. So that came to my mind, and thank you. I mean, it's just overwhelming, actually. Today's session with so much of love. Thank you so much. Thanks to each and everyone who made time to attend this talk. I'm sure your hearts feel the same sweetness and love. Just a few announcements. This year, Chinmaya Mission Worldwide has initiated the Gita Duta efforts to facilitate the propagation of Pujya Gurudev's hallmark commentary on the Gita and also facilitate its study. As you can see, it is a treasure house of knowledge. The book is available for purchase at RM60. We will cover the postage and gift package it for you to be sent to any address within Peninsular Malaysia. This is a wonderful gift to give yourself and to others as well. So do avail yourself of this opportunity. You know how beautiful the Gita is. At least, you know, you can have this for yourself and also gift it to others so they can also benefit from it. Thank you so much.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.